people are tired of democracy. Or at least
What is this voice?
that's the vibe that I'm getting
That's the
currently. It
vibe.
seems that across the West, a lot of people are starting to entertain increasingly illiberal ideas of the direction that their politics should be going, myself included, mainly because I think most people can see that democracy, more than anything at the moment, is being used as a tool against them. When you hear about demographic change and the Great Replacement or the branding of America, that people recognize that what's happening is the only reason they're importing all of these people in from foreign countries, not just for cultural change, is also to encourage votes and trying to gain voters who will vote Democrat for life.
If you don't know who Sargon of Akkad is, he is a joke of a man who took a Mesopotamic, I believe, king. I could be completely wrong. I'm just making that shit up. An old king, his name, and just slapped it on himself and went, I'm as smart and as important as this guy. He had a YouTube channel where he trolled feminists. He proclaimed to be left wing. Yeah, he ruined that king. Yeah, for sure. He proclaimed to be left wing in the beginning, but slowly, he crept over. I don't know if he was honest with his original political affiliation. But either way, he slowly crept over, and there came a point where he went full-on white nationalist. Now, since then, he has created a podcast because he had a political run for the EU Parliament, which I've never seen a bigger loss, honestly. It was really embarrassing how much money he spent on it and how few votes he got. His YouTube channel, is it active at all? I don't think so, but I haven't watched in a long time. It's 1 month, 4 month, 1 month, 1 year, 2 years. I wouldn't call this active. It has some death rattles. That's all. But if we look at his popular 3 million views, Who I Am and What I Do 8 years ago. Tommy Lauren destroys Trevor Noah over Black Lives Matters. Doubtful. What's this? PewDiePie did nothing wrong. Yes, he did. He existed. So yeah, and he's basically just a right-wing troll at this point. However, since his YouTube channel died out, he started a podcast with these chuckle fucks. And this video, the people are tired of democracy. I want to start off by reading some comments. I haven't watched this. I haven't read any comments. I've done nothing. I just happened to see this video pop up. And I thought the title was really interesting. Republics decline into democracies, and democracies degenerate into despotism. Aristotle. Yeah. Because I take everything from old philosophers at face value as truth. Absolutely. Especially since their democracy wasn't even the kind of democracy we have today. The problem with democracy, universal suffrage, is that once politicians figure out they can remain in perpetual power and do what they want as long as they can bribe 51% of the population, or the popular will, with the wealth of the remaining 49%, that's precisely what they will do. The vote needs to be earned. I remember Oh my god, I have to see here. Sargon of Akkad. What's it called? The Bugs from Space movie. I will do my part. Do you want to know more? What's that called? Why do I have sexy videos here? Come on, help me. Space aliens, bugs. Do I have to go to IMDb? IMDb. No, not Galactic, is it? No. IMDb. What's his name from Doogie Howser? How I'm okay. We're gonna do a rabbit hole, shit here because I can't figure out. Really? Where's Barney? Neil Patrick Harris. Starship Troopers. Thank you. Starship Troopers. Oh, it's 1 hour.
I've been watching the YouTube channel Wisecrack for years, and I really like it. And I find Jared's takes on most subjects that he covers to be really sound and very informative. And for the past few weeks, he's been talking a lot about fascism. And so when I saw the video Starship Troopers, How to Make Fascism Sexy, I inwardly groaned and then clicked on it. For reference, in this video, I'm going to use a previous video that I've done called The Politics of Starship Troopers. All of the sources and answers that may not be fully explored in this video will be present in that one.
When it first came out, audiences mostly took it at face value as a cheesy but enjoyable space romp. Since then, scholars have pointed out that the film offers a heaping helping of fascist imagery and ideology.
Well, it is true that it gives you...
My history teacher in high school loved that movie. If you watch it, you should take note of Neil Patrick Harris's character, how he dresses and how he acts. Every scene he is part of, his uniform becomes more and more and more like the SS. Like Starship Troopers, Neil Patrick Harris, images. Like this is early on. You can see he just has a military uniform. But here he is. Tell me this isn't the SS. Or is this early on? Maybe this isn't early on. Maybe this is later on. What's his... Oh, this is... No, this is not early on. This is midway through. But yeah, this is midway. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that's an SS soldier. Yeah, it's a great movie because you can watch it as a kid without understanding the underlying message. The issue, just like here. Just like Wisecrack said, the audience, back when it came out, didn't understand the message either, though. It's too good of a satire of fascism that it goes above people's heads. They just think military, sexy, cool, fun, shoot, goofy. That's all they take. But this is a serious critique of fascism underneath. Fascists are obsessed with aesthetics. Is that why? Yes. Fascists love this. That's all they care about, pretty much. The aesthetics. They can't be perceived as goofy. Hitler was goofy as fuck. Come on. Look at the hair, look at the mustache. But he wanted to be perceived as a strong authority figure. The dude was mentally insane. He believed he was invincible at one point. Seriously. Anyway, let's because I want to get I think it's this. I want to see if we can't just find
Think of the right
Willingness and ability to inflict violence.
Here we
have
go.
18 years to get it. I guess it might be a commentary on how Darwin would have fascist war on the bugs are now pitted across the... I don't think that the bugs actually do represent communism because of the hierarchical nature of their society. The bugs actually really represent fascism. This is the ideal fascist civilization. It's
the bugs in Starship Troopers is actually the native people. All they're doing is defending themselves. That's what they're doing. But fascism demands the otherization of those. So what they see as bugs is actually just the native population. They have colonized other worlds where this bug was already there. That's why they are at war. That's the whole thing of the movie. But no, they are the fascists, not the militarized, ever expanding universal. I was gonna say global expansion, but universal expansion of the human race. That's the fascism in actuality.
The entire race. All of it is working in perfect harmony for the greater goal of bug civilization spreading across the planet. That is an amazingly fascist vision, and the humans have to deal with that in the universe. I don't think that the humans saying that they are necessarily the superior species is anything more than trying to keep the morale up. Like, we, the human race, are now pitted against an aggressive bug race that seems to operate in the perfect Nazi manner, and we now have to try and say that what we do is better than what they do. And as far as I'm concerned, the humans having a constitutional democratic order is way better than what the bugs do. The humans didn't declare war on the bugs either. The bugs were the aggressors. Even if the humans had strayed into their territory, launching attacks on their home planet seems a little disproportionate. It really seems to me that the bugs are the genocidal ones here. I mean, what do they even want?
As his biology teacher puts it,
The Sargon of Akkad people is superior in many ways. It reproduces in vast numbers, has no ego, has no fear, doesn't know about death, and so is a perfect helpless member of society.
Yeah, that makes the bugs sound pretty Nazi-like. But also, would a fascist regime really have teachers that openly said, the Jew is superior to the Aryan in every way?
even Lieutenant Ratchak's battle cry brings it
Wait,
Home planet and say that what we do is passionate. It really seems to me that the bugs are the genocidal ones here. I mean, what do they even want?
as his biology teacher puts it.
The Sargon
first of all, just
Planet seems a little disproportionate. It really seems to me that the bugs are the genocidal ones here. I mean, what do they even want?
As his
look at her. Tell me this isn't a Nazi. Seriously, this is a Nazi. But anyway, that's
biology teacher puts it.
the Sargon of Akkad people
the Arcalian sand beetle is superior in many ways. If you don't remember, Hitler on black people winning Olympics. Where is it? Oh, it's a video? No. I believe because the black people won like the 100-meter sprint and stuff like that. Hitler declared that yeah, they are faster. Sure, but we have the brains. That's this is a direct quote pretty much from Hitler.
is superior in many ways. It reproduces in vast numbers, has no ego, has no fear, doesn't know about death, and so is a perfect helpless member of society.
Yeah, that makes the bugs sound pretty Nazi.
This is exactly Nazi propaganda. The Jews reproduce in vast numbers, so we have to eradicate them before they become too plentiful for us to survive. That's direct Nazi propaganda.
Nazi-like. But also, would a fascist regime really have teachers that openly said, the Jew is superior to the Aryan in every way?
Even Lieutenant Ratchak's battle cry brings it all back to survival of the fittest.
Come on, you hate me. You want to live forever?
I've got to admit, I've never actually read On the Origin of the Species, but I severely doubt Darwin wrote that in there. I mean, it seems a little unfair to cherry pick this out because, I mean, in the context of what's happening, they're about to be besieged by hundreds of thousands of bugs, and they're all about to die heroically, fighting for their lives as the bugs overwhelm and chop them to pieces. But I mean, I guess it might be a commentary on the Darwinist nature of it.
Of course, at the core of the Federation ideology is the belief that the right to exercise political power is not given at birth.
But just like us. We don't think that the right to exercise political power is given at birth. We think
No, we do. We absolutely do. You have a birthright to your vote, but you can't cash it in until you're 18 years because your mind hasn't formed yet. We have to put you through school first. But everyone, even if they drop out, gets the birthright to democracy.
you have to wait 18 years to get it. You have to survive that long before you were given any kind of political power. I mean, like, what you're showing here is a pledge of allegiance to a constitution, and you're trying to paint this as if this is fascism.
But earned through the willingness and ability to inflict violence onto others.
Yes, that is literally the job of the citizen. And that's why in ancient republics, it was the citizens that voted and the citizens that fought. The people who defend what you have are the ones with the franchise. And these days, you defend what you have by paying your taxes, which funds an army, which is why every pacifist is a hypocrite. Their life would not exist were it not for their ability as citizens to provide force. Like it or lump it. That's what it is. And that's
not necessary. You can be a pacifist and still support the troops. You just don't want to take matters into your own hands. That's what a pacifist is. Someone who themselves doesn't murder.
That's why people have such a hard time understanding Heinlein, because he was just a political realist, as you can tell by the rhetoric that comes out of Radchek's mouth.
Something given has no value. But when you vote, you are exercising political authority. You're using force. And force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
And don't you forget it, because force is...
This, and if you didn't get it, that's absolutely fascist speak. Equating political violence with physical, or political power with physical violence, putting them equal to one another, is a way for fascists to justify their actions. Because, hey, you enacted XYZ political thing. So therefore, I can murder these people because that's equivalent. That's equivalent.
Is the final deciding factor. There is nothing beyond that.
German fascists, inspired by the pro-military writings of World War I veterans such as Ernst Jünger, held a similar view.
Literally anything that we can consider to be a state would require an ideology that would hold a similar view.
No!
Going back to Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, the head of state commands the army, because ultimately, a moral appeal cannot compel a physical force. The guy in charge has to be the one who is strong.
Okay. Anyway, I wanted to show you that, but this isn't just these two chuckle fucks. It's Sargon of Akkad himself as well. Scratch a conservative and you find someone who prefers to past over any future. Scratch a liberal and you find a closet aristocrat. What? Democracy doesn't work in a large, non-homogeneous country run by oligarchs. Then it's not a democracy. If it's run by oligarchs, there's too many competing interests. I wonder if it's the oligarchs or the non-homogeneous part that Travis Happy rallies against. yeah, Tarfreak, shut up.
The American...
So let's listen to this. The people are tired of democracy. Yes, his brain needs to go into recovery mode after every round because of the high-level ideas he has. Oh, so many high-level ideas.
People are tired of democracy. Or at least that...
What is this voice?
That's the vibe that I'm getting
That's
currently.
the vibe.
It seems that across the West, a lot of people are starting to entertain increasingly illiberal ideas of the direction that their politics should be going, myself included, mainly because I think most people can see that democracy, more than anything at the moment, is being used as a tool against them. When you hear about demographic change and the Great Replacement or the branding of America, that people recognize that what's happening is the only reason they're importing all of these people in from foreign countries, not just for cultural change, is also to encourage votes and trying to gain voters who will vote Democrat for life.
And by importing, heavy quotation marks, it's a Soros and therefore a Jewish dog whistle. B, what he means is refugees coming to America or Europe or wherever. That's what he means. Great replacement theory, yeah. But nobody is importing anyone. They're just freely coming here because we have and they don't. So naturally they're going to come here. Of course. Where else would they go? Oh, let me see here. I don't have anything. Let me go to Congo. Yeah, I want to be a mind slave in Congo. Slaving away for Elon Musk's cobalt. Yeah, that's what I want to do. Absolutely.
So they recognize the democratic system is not something that will always be their friend or always lead to the best results. And as such, people are starting to look elsewhere for their ideas on what good governance is. Before I go any further, if you want to see some excellent content that we've put out in the past that's for a country what is a day that this video, anybody, it will be free behind the paywall is of to this. So I've seen a lot of articles
press.
recently where people on the left in particular are very, very, very worried about what's going on in the right when they go to all of these conventions and speak to certain thinkers on the right who are gaining a lot of traction. People such as the main figure we're going to be talking about, Curtis Yarvin, who previously was some obscure blogger going under a stupid 19th century, gaining a lot of traction. People such as the main figure we're going to be talking about, Curtis Yarvin, who
Curtis Yarvin. Mencius Moldbug. Okay. Software engineer. Okay. So neoliberal at best. Along with fellow theorist Nick Land for founding the anti-egalitarian and anti-democratic philosophical movement known as Dark Enlightenment or Neo-Reactionary Movement, NRX. Yeah, of course. Views on race. Yarvin has alleged that whites have higher IQs than blacks for genetic reasons. He has been described as a modern-day supporter of slavery, a description he disputes. I'm gonna think it fits quite well.
Previously was some obscure blogger going under a stupid 19th century LARPing name like Mencius Moldbug, is now actually gaining traction not just with random autists on the internet. He's getting traction with people like JD Vance, people like Peter Thiel, people with actual money and actual influence behind them. And the left is absolutely terrified of this because they're the only ones allowed to use illiberal tactics to destroy their enemies. The right wing aren't allowed to do that. Anyway, but yeah, this article from The Atlantic, which is slightly sensationalist, the terrifying future of the American right.
Sensationalist? No way.
What I saw at the National Conservatism Conference. Now, this is one of those insufferable Atlantic articles on, which takes the same format as the rest of the articles I'll be looking at, where it's all delivered from a first-person perspective, and it's basically like a journal that the journalist has been writing for themselves. He starts off describing a speech given by a woman called Rachel Bovard at the National Conservatism Conference, saying, the atmosphere's electric. She's giving the best synopsis of national conservatism I've heard at the conference that we're attending. And with flair, progressives pretend to be the oppressed ones, she tells the crowd, but in reality it's just an old boys' club, another frat house for entitled rich kids, contrived to perpetuate their unearned privilege. It's skull and bones for gender studies majors. She finishes to a rousing ovation. People leap up to their feet. I have a sinking sensation that thunderous sound I'm hearing is the future of the Republican Party.
Yeah, it is. It is. The Republican Party have been sucking up to Viktor Orban, the Hungarian president, or rather dictator, who has been winning elections with a rather big margin. He owns all of Hungarian, not he himself, but he and his friends own all of Hungarian media. We can look at Italy, where what's his name? The previous dictator, not the new one. Italian leaders. What's his name? Not Benito Mussolini. Silvio Berlusconi. Berlusconi owned all, and I mean all, not Mussolini, Berlusconi, all of Italian media while he was president. I don't know if he still does. Maybe. That's why he was never really criticized, and that's why he still has a favorable view in Italy, I believe, and which is why he rode in on the coattails of the new fascist leader.
People noticed. That's exactly what it is. Oh God, they found us out. I mean, that's what it comes across to me. This is just desperate because The Atlantic and other writers and other people across the left mainstream media are just going, oh God, they know. They know. And I always think how awkward it must be to be a leftist journalist in these kinds of circumstances, listening to these speeches, interacting with these people, having to put on the front like, that's not what's going on, that's not what's going on. But in the back of your head, you probably know, God, they've got us down.
he actually he believes this. He thinks no. They share my worldview. They're just lying about it. That's what he believes. That's why he can say all these things without shame, really. Right? There's no left mainstream media. They're all liberal, but left of him, which, I mean, yeah, everyone's gonna be left of you, buddy. If you are a fascist.
They've got us down to pat here.
Either there's enough cognitive dissonance there to be, insurmountable, or they're deliberately lying. I think it's...
Bruh. You're telling on yourself, okay?
A bit more of the latter, but surely there must be some of the former as well.
It must be deliberately lying, but I think you're right that we can't discount a heavy buffer of just raw stupidity in a lot of these people, that they don't notice what it is that they're actually doing. The article goes on in the...
Notice, no specificity. I need to bring up 14 points fascism. Umberto Eco. Let's do a tick for every point they tag. What did they say? What happened? What information was the audience given from this? Seriously. Cultural tradition. One has only to look at the syllabus of every fascist movement to find the major traditionalist thinkers. The Nazi gnosis was nourished by traditionalists' syncretistic occult elements. I'm gonna take this. Oh, way too small. For what they said in the beginning, with the whole importing of immigrants. That's them standing for cult of tradition. It's been this way, therefore it has to continue to be this way. Rejection of modernism. Abso-fucking-lutely. Democracy? Fuck that. Yeah, that's rejection of modernism. The cult of action fraction. Not yet. Disagreement is treason. They're starting to weigh in on this position. They are. I'm gonna leave a question mark here. We're gonna look out for this one. The critical spirit makes distinctions, and to distinguish is a sign of modernism. In modern culture, the scientific community praises disagreement as a way to improve knowledge. I'm gonna put a question mark there, because it sounds like they're saying these people, these journalists, the left-wing mainstream media, are disagreeing with us because they're lying. Not because they have I can look at these guys, these chuckle fucks, and I can say they believe what they say. I trust that. They can't look at me and say, you believe what you say, because I don't agree with them. That's the only reason. So we're going to put a question mark there. Fear of difference. Oh yeah. Big check mark. Appeal to social frustration. Yeah. Yep. The obsession with a plot. Yeah. Importing immigrants. That's obsession with a plot. Thus, at the root of the Ur-fascist psychology, there is an obsession with a plot, possibly an international one. The followers must feel besieged. The enemy is both strong and weak. By saying the journalists believe this. Hello, Blase. Man, I can't pronounce that. I'm sorry. Blaha. I'm going to call it Blaha. I'm sorry. Hello, Blaha. I understand it's a Polish word, a name, perhaps, somewhere around there. The enemy both strong and weak. The journalists are strong. Left-wing media is putting out these hit pieces, these think pieces, which is just a blog, but they have a big reach. But they're lying, so they're strong in their reach, but they're lying, so their reach is still weak. We can defeat them by exposing their lies. So yeah, the enemy is both strong and weak. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For fascism, they haven't gone there. I'm going to be generous. They haven't gone with, if you don't do X, you are on the side of Y. They haven't done that yet. Contempt for the weak. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. Maybe. I'm gonna say no there. Not yet. Everybody is educated to become a hero. I don't know if you can do this without having control, though. In fascist ideology, heroism is the norm. This cult of heroism is strictly linked with the cult of death. Maybe, I mean, you can form a small community. They are the teachers, and they're probably teaching people not to be weak in general. I haven't seen it in this video, though. Everybody's educated to become here. Oh, sorry, we were there. They are the educators. So, machismo and weaponry. Machismo implies both disdain for women and intolerance and condemnation of non-standard sexual habits, from chastity to homosexuality. Not yet in this video. Selective populism. There is in our future TV or internet populism in which the emotional response of a selected group of citizens can be presented and accepted as the voice for the people, of the people. Not big enough. Yep. Oh yeah. That's what they've done in less than 5 minutes. Fascism speaks newspeaks. All the Nazis or fascist school books made use of an improvised vocabulary and an elementary syntax in order to limit the instruments for complex and critical reasoning. So they have ticked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 14 points in fascism in less than 5 minutes. But what have they actually said? Nothing except they are lying. They know they're lying. They have to know they're lying. I'm not going to provide evidence, but they're lying. Know that they're lying. Oh, it's probably some cognitive dissonance, but they're lying. There's nothing else they've said. But let's continue. See if they improve on this.
Atcom worldview, the profiteers of surveillance capitalism see all and control all, is workers indoctrinated at elite universities use wokeness, in scare quotation marks, to buy off the left and to create a subservient, atomized, defenseless labor pool. Big business is not our ally, Marco Rubio argued. They are eager culture warriors who use the language of wokeness to cover free market capitalism. The entire phalanx of big business has gone hard left, Cruz said. We've seen big business, the Fortune 500, becoming the economic enforcers of the hard left. Name 5 Fortune 500 CEOs who are even remotely right of center. The journalist.
I mean, everyone? What are you talking about? Fortune 5 CEOs. Let's see here. Jamie Dimon. Oh, Jamie Dimon. You are for sure a right of center. For sure. I have no idea who you are, but I'm sure you're right. I mean, everybody is right of center here. There's no denying that. I'm just saying there are specific people which are more right of center. Tim Cook, I would call him center. Not right of center, just center. I'll be generous. But yeah, no. There are a lot of people with right of center leanings in the CEOs, among the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Writing this article, Mr. David Brooks does not take any time to try and refute any of these claims, but he does get very scared about them. Once again, because we know the truth, we've noticed, and we use the language of wokeness to...
In the NatCon worldview, the profiteers of surveillance capitalism see all and control all, Its workers indoctrinated at elite universities use wokeness to buy off the left and to create a subservient, atomized, defenseless labor pool. Big business is not our ally. That part is true, but it's not for the reasons you think. They are ego culture warriors who use the language of wokeness to cover free market capitalism. That is true. Absolutely. But you are in favor of free market capitalism, Marco. So, what's the issue here for you? The entire phalanx of big business has gone hard left. No, they haven't. No. We've seen big business, the Fortune 500, becoming the economic enforcers of the hard left. Name 5 Fortune 500 CEOs who have even remotely rights of center. The idea that the left controls absolutely everything from your smartphone to the money supply to your third grader's curriculum explains the apocalyptic tone that was the dominating emotional register of the conference. Okay, so he explains why they brought it up here.
Cover free market capitalism. The entire phalanx of big business has gone hard left, Cruz said. We've seen big business, the Fortune 500, becoming the economic enforcers of the hard left. Name 5 Fortune 500 CEOs who are even remotely right of centre. The journalist writing this article, Mr. David Brooks, does not take any time to try and refute any of these claims, but he does get very scared about them. Once again, because we know.
Gets kind of scared about them? In what way was he scared about them? Again, they're just doing where is it? Obsession with a plot. And the enemy is both strong and weak. That's all he's doing here.
The truth we've noticed, and once the cat's out of the bag, what's it? Cat's out of the bag?
Yeah,
that's the phrase. Once the cat's out of the bag, you can't get it back in there.
I'm surprised that being scared is seen as valid political commentary. Someone's got paid for this, and they're just like, I'm scared by this.
I'll describe it, and every so often I'll remind everybody how terrified I am. Well, we are in the period where...
Okay, I need to read this. Did it have a link here? Let's see here, 606. The terrifying future of the far right. Of the American right. Oh, there it was. Let's see how this journalist continues afterwards. The idea that the left controls absolutely everything from your smartphone to the money supply to your third grader's curriculum explains the apocalyptic tone that was dominating emotional register of this conference. Sorry. The political speeches were like entries in the catastrophism Olympics. The left's ambition is to create a world beyond belongings, said Hawley. Their grand ambition is to deconstruct the United States of America. The left's attack is on America. The left hates America, said Cruz. It is the left that is trying to use culture as a tool to destroy America. We are confronted now by systematic effort to dismantle our society, our traditions, our economy, and our way of life. What is there to refute? Sir. 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 The first great project of the National Conservative is to man the barricades of the culture war. These people have certainly done their homework when it comes to cultural Marxism, how the left has learned to dominate culture, and how the right now needs to copy their technique. If I'd had to drink a shot every time some speaker cited Herbert Marcuse or Antonio Gramsci, I'd be dead of alcohol poisoning. The first great project of National Conservative is to man the barricades in the culture war. These people have certainly done their homework when it comes to cultural Marxism, how the left has learned to dominate culture and how the right needs to copy their techniques. What are you talking about, David Brooks? Yeah, oh, there it comes. There it is. I knew I had a reason to look into this. I fell in love with conservatism in my 20s. Oh, yeah. This is a conservative who is He doesn't refute it because he doesn't disagree with it necessarily. He thinks, oh, this is the right copying the left wing fear mongering. No. This is the right confirming the left wing fear mongering. Okay, we're at 6 minutes.
And every so often I'll remind everybody how terrified I am. Well, we are in the period where trans activism gets quite a long way. Purely scared about them. Once again, because we know the truth, we've noticed, and once the cat's out of the bag, what's it? Cat's out of the bag?
Yeah,
that's the phrase. Once the cat's out of the bag, you can't get it back in there.
I'm surprised that being scared is seen as valid political commentary. Someone's got paid for this, and they're just like, I'm scared by this.
I'll describe it, and every so often I'll remind everybody.
Which is all conservative political ideology at the moment. I'm scared of this. That's all they're doing. I'm scared of trans people. I'm scared of the gay.
How terrified I am. Well, we are in the period where trans activism gets quite... I'll describe it, and every so often I'll...
Valid political commentary.
So he says, look at this.
The cat's out of the bag, you can't get it back in there.
I'm surprised that being scared is seen as valid political commentary.
I'm surprised, whatever, that being scared is seen as valid political commentary. And then this chuckle.
Someone's got paid for this, and they're just like, I'm scared by this.
I'll describe it, and every so often I'll remind everybody how terrified I am. Well, we are in the period where trans activism gets quite a long way, purely from that. Just going like, somebody said a mean word to me. I'm terrified. And then Labour, the mainstream media, all of the institutions wrap a blanket around and go, oh, poor baby, oh, bless.
It's like we've structured our entire society around someone else's feelings. It's bizarre.
But,
society doesn't care about your feelings, Sir. Society does not care about your feelings because you are a moron. Your feelings is, I'm scared of the other. I'm scared of the unknown. And society goes, okay, but we like the unknown, so we don't care about your feelings. And then you go, how dare you? I hate the other. I hate the unknown. And they go, then you can't participate in our society. And that's why they're mad. That's all they're mad about.
Yes, as you can tell, this sort of person is not particularly happy that the right wing seem to have woken up from just going like, no, the left are the real racists, and instead of going, actually, here's the tactics the left are using, here's how we destroy them. Because this is politics, which basically means it's all-out war, sadly. But this comes on to the articles, the main articles, which are the ones where people are talking about, people on the left, leftist publications like Vanity Fair and also Vox are talking about Curtis Yarvin, and not entirely in an unflattering light. We covered this article earlier on this year where Carl and Callum spoke about it, so I won't go...
Okay. So these idiots, these morons, say all left-wing media, all left-wing mainstream media, yada, yada, yada. And then they bring up left-wing media who doesn't speak too unkindly of a far-right ideologue. And they still call it left-wing media. Do you see what they're doing?
Go over the whole thing. But I love the framing here. They're not MAGA, they're not QAnon, as if these are the only two flavors of right-wing that you can get.
At the moment, yeah.
Curtis Yarvin and the rising right are crafting a different strain of conservative politics. Of course, this is the dissident sphere, which is becoming more and more incorporated into the mainstream in the way that, say, Tucker Carlson has started to incorporate a lot of dissident ideas and thoughts and language into his segments he does on Fox News. Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, Blake Masters, all are friends with Curtis Yarvin, 48-year-old ex-programmer and blogger who has done more than anyone to articulate the world historical critique and popularise the key terms of the new right. To ignore him is to underestimate how Yarvin's ideas, or at least ideas in conversation with his, have become fundamental to a whole political and cultural scene that goes much deeper than anything you'd learn from panels and speeches at an event like NatCon. So it's very interesting. Carl pointed out that the tone taken here is not actually negative. It's almost neutral, but for a publication like Vanity Fair, you wouldn't expect it to be so neutral, which makes me wonder, are the journalists who, in the course of writing large articles like this, having to spend time with Curtis Yarvin face-to-face and all the people around him and listen to the ideas, do you ever think that they might listen to him and go, got a point there? You might be right. When that layer of cognitive dissonance, I can't talk this morning, vanishes, maybe they are left thinking to themselves, hold up, these people have got a hell of a lot right. And I think that's the thing, the left and the right, we all agree that the world is effed up right now. And we all agree that it should change. It's the methods of how it should change and what we want it to change into that we really differ on. And perhaps these sorts of people, if they're just addressed in a courteous way, if they're spoken to in friendly manner, obviously I don't trust journalists because they are all snakes, but I think that there are probably some who might be open to ideas, even if they're not going to come on side.
I'm sure that just being polite and personable to someone is going to make them less inclined to scathingly destroy everything you believe.
But at the same time, just being polite won't stop smear merchants from being smear merchants, so you do have to keep your guard up at all times, sadly, as much as I would like to be able to just be relaxed around people.
The enemy is both strong and weak at the same time. That's what they were saying. Oh, if you're just being personal, they're gonna play it right. But you can't be too. You gotta keep your guard up. You can't let it down. Yada yada yada. I wanna. Okay, they've been gushing about this person. I wanna read some of his views. Views on race. So he claims to oppose slavery. He has claimed that some races are more suited to slavery than others, though. 18. Article not found, of course. In a post that linked approvingly to Steve Saylor and Jared Taylor, he wrote, "It should be obvious that although I'm not a white nationalist, I am not exactly allergic to that stuff." He's not allergic to white nationalism. In 2009, he wrote that since U.S. civil rights programs were applied to populations with recent hunter-gatherer ancestry and no greater reputation for sturdy moral fiber, the result was absolute human garbage. Holy fuck! This guy's just out and out. He's just, yeah, I'm a fucking racist. He doesn't even try to hide it. He's Kanye before Kanye. Yarvin disputed accusations of racism, and in his essay, Why I'm Not a White Nationalist. If you have to write an essay called Why I'm Not a White Nationalist, you might be a white nationalist. And Why I'm Not an Anti-Semite, same thing applies. He offered a somewhat sympathetic analysis of those ideologies before ultimately rejecting them. And, okay. He has also described the use of IQ tests to determine supposed superiority as creepy. Per Tate, Mulbug's racial comments suggest a broader trend. The anonymity of the internet allows him and others who have followed in his wake to revel in taboo language, ideas, and activities. Violating social norms is a kind of liberation for Moldbug. Entertaining these ideas is to break from the cathedral. Yeah, it's I'm such a contrarian. Look at me. Oh, I'm not a racist. I just enjoy reading and perpetuating racist ideas.
The fundamental premise of liberalism, says Yarvin, is that there is an inexorable march towards progress. I disagree with this premise. He believes that the premise underpins a massive framework of power. My job, as he puts it, is to wake people up from the Truman Show. And once again, the fact that this is all just completely neutral, very interesting. It makes me think to myself, either this person is actually doing his journalistic due diligence.
10 minutes. What's the Vanity Fair? Was that the... Yeah, Vanity Fair. Inside the right. The new right. The new right.
Framing here, they're not MAGA, they're not...
James Pogue. Who are you, James? Oh! One article. Okay. Search. James Pogue is an American essayist and journalist. He has contributed to Harper's Magazine. His pieces have appeared on cover of Harper's and the American Conservative. He is the author of Chosen Country, Rebellion in the West, a first-person account of conflict over public lands in the American West. The book was called a fascinating debut by NPR and praised by the New York Review of Books. The Los Angeles Review of Publication is criticized by some publications for its personal narrative and essayistic digressions. Kirkles called the book courageous, but it cited some excess and irrelevance. Pogue has written for publications. He has also frequently contributed to Baffler, influence of the tech platform, and Hollywood and contemporary creative controversy. Pogue grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, is friendly frequent in the Midwestern politics. His essay about the city's political history was collected in City by City. Pogue's report titled Forestry and I want to see politics. No, that's the same. Conservative guys are going to get all the girls. What? Inside a new strain of reactionary retro-patriarchal conservative politics embodied by those like Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance. Author James Pogue talks to co-host Emily James. Is this the so-called new right, the intellectual movement congealing? No. Search. Congealing. Okay. Around tech billionaires and MAGA mega donor Peter Thiel and the Trumpist GOP, which he wrote about for the May issue of Vanity Fair after embedding himself with the vanity guard of intellectual. How much do you want to bet that this isn't a critique? It's just a look how good they are. This is a conservative doing journalism, and these guys are treating it as a left-wing thing. Like, these are left-wing people. Why can't people be contrarians but move to the left? Because it doesn't make money. Yeah, there's no money on the left. You don't go to the left to become a billionaire. You go to the left to become true to your values.
Completely neutral. Very interesting. It makes me think to myself, either this person is actually doing his journalistic due diligence and just reporting neutrally, which is a very rare thing nowadays, or perhaps he's being won over. And the most recent one to add to the
reporting neutrally, this is also a right-wing tactic. You don't report neutrally if you're going to report on politics. You can't report neutrally on politics. You can report neutrally on facts. But facts have a left-wing bias.
This collection of articles where they're talking about Curtis Yarvin is from all publications. Vox, which is very, very mainstream, incredibly far left, but also actually far more.
Let's see here. Andrew Prokop. There's no Wikipedia for him, it seems. Wiki. This isn't the same guy, is it? He's a senior political correspondent at Vox. Let's see here. No, fine art photographer. In his coverage of threats to U.S. democracy, politicization of the Justice Department, the oddness of our electoral system, and the Biden policy agenda, and much more, he's interested in digging deep into the mechanism of how and why U.S. politics works or doesn't, surfacing submerged debates and exploring naughty complexities. He was Vox's lead writer covering the Mueller investigation impeachment and Trump's attempt to overturn 2020 election result. And he tried to look past the spin to give readers an accurate sense of what was happening in chaotic, unfolding situations. He has profiled politicians such as Joe Manchin, Mitch McConnell, and Bernie Sanders, focusing not on personality, but on their institutional and practical impact. Okay, I can't outright call this dude a right wing, not pundit, propagandist. No, Vox, not Fox. They are two different. Vox actually started off as a liberal, at least, news site. Fox, on the other hand, is foxnews.com, is far right for sure. But they're not mainstream Vox, or they're not left-wing mainstream.
Alarmist and sensationalist than the Vanity Fair one. Curtis Yarvin wants American democracy toppled, and he has some prominent Republican fans.
That's such a slimy title.
It is, but it's not untrue.
Yeah, it's factually correct, but it's presented in such a way to maximise
it does make it
a
sound like
emotional
he wants,
reaction.
It makes it sound like he wants violence in the White House. It makes it sound like he wants January 6th. Actually, a very rare thing nowadays, or perhaps he's being won over. And the most recent one to add to this collection of articles where they're talking about Curtis Yarvin is from all publications Vox, which is very, very mainstream, incredibly far left, but also actually far more alarmist and sensationalist than the Vanity Fair one. Curtis Yarvin wants American democracy toppled, and he has some prominent Republican fans.
That's such a slimy title.
It is, but it's not untrue.
Yeah, it's factually correct, but it's
it's factually. It's such a slimy, but it's factually correct. But it's such a slimy headline.
Presented in such a way to maximise.
It does make it
a
sound like
emotional
he wants,
reaction.
It makes.
The people are tired of democracy is the title of this video, and they are reacting to this. Curtis Yarvin wants American democracy toppled.
Makes it sound like he wants violence in the White House. It makes it sound like he wants January 6th Part 2 or something, whereas no, what Yarvin and others are arguing for is there should be a counter-elite rise up, the kind exemplified by J.D. Vance and Blake Masters and other people in the political sphere like Peter Thiel who can fund all of them, and just say, no, we just need to replace those elites. Not necessarily by violent means, but by whatever means are available to us. After Yarvin stepped away from his startup, the company behind the open source software project Urbit, in 2019, The American Mind, the online publication of the conservative think tank the Claremont Institute began publishing his essays, effectively welcoming him into the now mainstream discourse on the right. He became a frequent guest on new right podcasts, and in 2020, he started a Substack, at first using it to post excerpts from an in-progress book, but eventually returning to his blogging posts. And after all of that, he's far more well-known and popular than ever. And like I say, I think there's a reason for that, which is his ideas are really starting to connect with people. Even if his solutions aren't appealing to everybody, his criticisms are very cogent.
We use a lot of the terms that he's coined in our everyday conversations about politics, don't we? Like he coined the cathedral, yeah. He also popularised the use of red and blue pill.
I always forget that comes straight from him as well. And it comes from, honestly, I've tried reading Unqualified Reservations. I find it very difficult, purely because of that sort of elite speak, mid-2000s.
I like how so he's the one that coined the term red pill and blue pill. I don't know. I have no idea. I remember that term being coined during the Gamergate days. But it's interesting using what obviously has become a deep trans allegory for your far right wing, anti-democratic, anti-trans ideology. I find that kind of funny.
2000s verbiage he uses throughout it. It makes it quite difficult to connect with the ideas a lot of the time because I just feel like he's trying to come across like he thinks he's Morpheus in it. Even though his ideas are very good, his criticisms are very good, it's just annoying to read, sadly. So I'm sorry, Curtis. The way that this article describes Curtis's ways of fixing things, because they go through a full rundown of what it is that Yarvin wants to enact change. And they say, you need to say, well, we want to get rid of democracy. That needs to be your campaign. Campaign on it and win. First off, this would-be dictator should seek a mandate from the people by running for president and openly campaigning on the platform of, as he put it to Chow, if I'm elected, I'm going to assume absolute power in Washington and rebuild the government. And let's be honest here, whether they said it or not, that's actually what people wanted Donald Trump to do in 2016.
Let's bring this back. Check. And check. And let's go back. No, these guys are so much worse than I expected. They are just openly saying it. This is worse than I expected. Much, much worse. Openly calling for fascism, openly calling for a dictatorship, saying you should run on this and let people decide. Okay, that's one generation. What about the next generation? What about the young kids who don't want it, and then they're going to have to grow up in a world where there's a dictatorship and they can't vote that person out because there's no elections anymore. So one generation, the oldest generation in history of the world, gets to decide who is a dictator for life. That's what they are proposing.
Did they?
At the very least, they wanted him to rebuild the government in some way. That's clear out the deep state, drain the swamp.
I don't think people who supported him necessarily wanted him to actually be a dictator. I mean, no.
I can't believe there's pushback. That's incredible. This dude is not as deep into the swamp as this dude is. This dude has reservations. He has reservations. This dude does not have any reservations.
Most Trump supporters would say they want him to uphold the Constitution, which
they
is
do.
obviously antithetical to that.
But if you want to uphold the Constitution as it was meant to be, you would have to rebuild the government as it is right now.
Well, it has been infiltrated, hasn't it? You would certainly need to have a clear out. Drain the swamp, you could say.
Yeah, you would have to drain the swamp. For one, you would have to get rid of massive institutions like the Federal Reserve to do so if you wanted to go back to an actually constitutional America.
Agreed.
And you would have to repeal a few of the additional amendments that were made after the 10th Amendment. And
they are both right and both wrong in this. The dude on the left, the butt boy, he is correct that a lot of Trump supporters actually wanted fascism. Let me see here. Here from the damage report.
Gladiator Showtime
trash out.
And the audience.
It's supposedly representing us in Washington.
Seriously, if you want to take it back, it's citizen involvement. You can take the trash out.
Oh, Lord.
Action for action's sake.
Never in my life did I think I would like to see a dictator. But if there's going to be one, I want it to be Trump.
Yeah. So he's not incorrect that the maggots wanted Trump as a dictator. But this dude is also correct in saying most of them probably just wanted him to uphold the Constitution the way they see it. And the Constitution is democratic to an extent. But yeah, so they're both correct in that term, in that way. But they're both wrong because maggots absolutely are fascists. But they're also upholding the Constitution, their delusional idea of what the Constitution is.
After the Bill of Rights. Also, purge the federal bureaucracy and create a new one. I think this is something that everybody wants to see. Once the new president/would-be monarch is elected, Yavin thinks time is of the essence. The speed that this happens with has to take everyone's breath away after the Bill of Rights. Also, purge the massive institutions like the Federal Reserve to do so if you wanted to go back to an actually constitutional America.
Agreed.
And you would have to repeal a few of the additional amendments that were made after the 10th Amendment. And
after the 10th Amendment? What was the 10th list of amendments? 10th, federal government possesses only those powers delegated and blah, blah, blah. Make states immune for suits from out-of-state citizens. Revise presidential election procedures by having the president and vice president elected together. Abolish slavery. Abolish slavery. Defines citizenship, contains the privilege of immunity clauses, clause and due process clause. They don't like the 14th either, which protects people from unjust search and seizures. Provides rights to vote based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Permits Congress to levy an income tax without appointing it among the various states. Blah blah blah. Establish so yeah, remove the racist the equity clauses.
After the Bill of Rights. Also, purge the federal bureaucracy and create a new one. I think this is something that everybody wants to see. Once the new president / would-be monarch is elected, Yavin thinks time is of the essence. The speed that this happens with has to take everyone's breath away, he told Chow. It should just execute at a rate that totally baffles its enemies. And the left do that sort of thing all the time. They come in, they just replace everybody, and then they've got full complete power. So that's just smart tactics.
In what world?
Ignore the...
And what left? In America? In the UK? Really? There's no left.
The courts. The rule of law of America. This may be one that most people have a lot of contentions with. The rule of law in America is based on shared beliefs and behaviors among many actors throughout the system, but it has no magical power. The courts have no mechanism to actually force a president to abide by their wishes should he defy their rulings. Once again, this is one that could be flipped the other way, and to be honest, has been flipped the other way to get leftists what they want a lot of the time. It carries on and asks, would politicians back this? J.D. Vance in the... Ignore the courts. The rule of law of America. This may just execute at a rate that totally baffles its enemies. And the left do that sort of thing all the time. They come in, they just replace everybody, and then they've got full complete power. So that's just smart tactics. Ignore the courts. The rule of law.
Ignore the courts?
Of America. This may be one that most people have a lot of contentions with. The rule of law in America is based on shared beliefs and behaviors among many actors throughout the system, but it has no magical power. The courts have no mechanism to actually force a president to abide by their wishes should he defy their rulings. Once again, this is one that could be flipped the other way, and to be honest, has been flipped the other way to get leftists what they want.
Oh, okay, yeah, the president can ignore the courts, sure. And it has been flipped for leftists to get what they want. And by flipped, he means follow the fucking courts.
A lot of the time. It carries on and asks, would politicians back this? J.D. Vance in the podcast mentioned earlier in the article said part of his advice for Trump in his second term would involve firing vast swaths of federal employees. And when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling. Now let him enforce it. This is, and like I say, this is kind of a variation of what people wanted from Trump. They wanted him to assume a bit more power than he actually had so that he could actually enact effective change. Shut down elite media and academic institutions. I mean, I just completely support that one at this point. Turn out your people throughout...
Shut down elite media and academic institutions. There we go. And I'm going to say this as well. Because they want these things. They support these things.
This process, Yavin wants to be able to get the new ruler supporters to take to the streets. You don't really need an armed force. You need the maximum capacity to summon democratic power that you can find. He pointed to his idea of a Trump app, which he thinks that Trump should start an app where he can just send out messages to organize all of his supporters.
I mean, yeah, he has that. It exists.
Which he said could collect 80 million cell numbers and notify people to tell them where to go and protest. And he pointed to his idea of a Trump app, which he thinks that Trump should start an app where he can just send out messages to organize all of his supporters, which he said could collect 80 million cell numbers and notify people to tell them where to go and protest peacefully. For instance,
it could collect what? 18 million what? Oh, sorry.
Curtis Yarvin wants America. Comes from, honestly, the ideas a lot of the time, because I just feel like he's trying to come across like he thinks he... The way that this article describes, and they say, see...
drain the swamp, you could...
He told Chow, it should just execute at a rate that totally... Ignore the courts. Has no magical power. The courts... This is one that could be... They want a lot of the time. It carries on and asks, would politicians back this? Stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson said part of his advice for Trump, back this. JD away, and to be honest, has been flipped the other way to get leftists what they want. J.D. Vance in the podcast mentioned earlier in the article said part of his advice for Trump in his second term would involve firing vast swaths of federal employees. And when the courts stop you, stand before the country like Andrew Jackson did and say, the Chief Justice has made... Say this is kind of a variation of what affect institutions. I mean, I just completely support that one at this point. Turn out your people. Throughout this process, I just... effective change, power than he actually had, so that he can actually affect force. You need the maximum capacity to summon democratic power that you can find. He pointed to his idea of a Trump app, which he thinks that Trump should start an app where he can just send out messages to organize all of his supporters, which he said could collect 80 million cell numbers and no...
What is he saying? 18 million what?
Which he said could collect 80 million cell numbers and no...
It sounds like seldoms, but I have no idea what that is. I'm gonna guess downloads. And I don't think the Trump social or Truth social has garnered that much. Cell numbers.
All of his supporters, which he said could collect 80 million cell numbers and...
Cell numbers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that's Truth Social. He has that.
Notify people to tell them where to go and protest peacefully. For instance, they could go to an agency that's defying the new leader's instructions to tell them support the lawful orders of this new lawful authority. All the declarations that America is currently falling apart could look quaint by comparison to what comes if the rule of law is shredded and the current order is topped. And this is the final paragraph where he really goes into doomsday scenario, this reporter. If you yank out a tooth, you can...
Okay, so interesting. The first two reporters that he put up, the Vanity Fair and whatever the first one was, not Vox, The Atlantic. Mainstream media for sure, but they were both conservatives. Now I looked at the Vox journalist. He does not come off as a conservative to me. And here they go. He does not like this. The people are waking up. The left-wing media is waking up to the truth. Except for this guy, who's actually not a right-wing conservative.
Cannot automatically expect a new and better tooth to grow back. I do love the idea of a leftist publication warning about the chaos that could ensue of bringing anarchy to the streets. That's just some delicious irony.
Fascism.
And in a critique of the new right is where that statement came from. The best laid plans of revolutionaries very often go awry, and I suppose the left would know all about that.
Yeah, well, they've got the most experience.
The cheek for a leftist to be warning us about the dangers of revolution. I mean, good gracious.
These people, well, of course, they're British. They absolutely oppose nations removing themselves from the Commonwealth, removing themselves from the United States or the United Kingdom's empire. They absolutely revolt against that. They want Congo. They want India. They want, Bahamas? To all be beholden to the crown. My God, they would oppose full-heartedly any attempts by America to democratize. It is astonishing. There's not a historian on earth. There's not an intellectual on earth. I'm gonna venture there is not a left wing, even tankies, who would claim that the American Revolution was bad in the grand scheme of things. These two chuckle fucks, including Sargon of Akkad, I'm sure, because he has employed these, would say that it was bad. I'm going to venture so far as to say that King Charles doesn't think the revolution was bad. Even him. In a private moment, of course. He would never admit it on camera.
There is danger, I would say, of the movement opening up for the leftists because it opens it up to midwits and saboteurs who might bring down the movement. I understand there are parts of the dissident right who are trying to keep it quite narrow and stop it from expanding too much because they don't want the overall quality of the individuals to reduce too much. But at the same time, if you want to enact change, whether or not this article is trying to smear it or not, I like to think that one or two Vox readers might read that and either go, hold up, isn't this all what we're basically doing anyway? Or they might go, actually, this makes some sense and is obviously just kind of realistic about how politics works rather than idealistic.
Part of the reason I think they're taking his ideas a bit more seriously is that it could be similar to how some people on the right look at people like, I don't know, Gramsci or Lenin and look at their analysis, don't necessarily agree with their outcomes, but just look at their diagnoses or their understanding of how systems work and extrapolating that aspect of it. You don't necessarily have to agree with the conclusions of a thinker to find them useful.
Well, of course.
The reason the right is taking him serious at the moment is because this is what the right wing does every goddamn time. Take libs of TikTok, for example. She was I can't remember her name, Prayachayapad? Something, whatever, not important. She was a nobody with connections in California to the rich and powerful, because she was a real estate agent. However, her license as a real estate agent was expired just 3 months after the Libs of TikTok account was started. The reason for this, most likely, is because she had connections with people connected to Tucker Carlson, for example. And these connections allowed her to garner money enough and exposure enough that she could work this as a media venture. The right picks and chooses what the rich and powerful, I should say, not the right necessarily, the rich and powerful picks and chooses what accounts, what message is brought into the forefront. They say, you have the right ideas, therefore I will grant you money. I will bring you from a nobody blogger who rails about autocracy to nobody and bring you into the forefront of the world through my connections. That's absolutely what's happening. And these idiots think, oh, it's just genuine. It's grassroots. People are thinking this because they agree with this, when it's all just astroturfed. I studied public relations in university here in Sweden. And the one thing I learned is it's not about, you don't teach people, sorry, let me see how I should phrase this. The media doesn't tell you how to think. The media tells you about what to think. But the issue becomes, because it's a very complex mechanism which between the reader and the producer. And the issue becomes, the more you think about something, the less it affects you. And if you've lived in a democratic society for all your life, and then suddenly every media outlet is started to talk about fascism in neutral terms. The first time, you probably think, what the fuck is happening? But every time it gets duller and duller and duller and duller and duller and duller and duller. And eventually, you think, oh, that's just Monday. Oh, that's nothing. Whatever. Sure. Okay. It's the same way they indoctrinate, and I'm using that literally, soldiers to be able to murder. You know? You talk about, I can't say the words. Sand people, but with an N at the end. You talk about them in dehumanizing terms, like bugs that needs to be squashed. The first time, wait, that's my neighbor. What, Jeff? Yeah, he's my neighbor. What's wrong with Jeff? Yeah, he's a Jew, but I mean, come on. But every time, the dehumanizing becomes less and less of an impact on you. And that's how you start to think maybe it's not that bad. Because if it's bad, you have to feel that it's bad. Because most people, and this is the issue. I believe this is an idea I just had. The heart of the issue is probably that most people don't think about their positions. They don't rationalize themselves coming to a conclusion. They feel a position. They feel like, yeah, we should help people. They're refugees. Of course we should help them. They are people in need. But the more they hear about the roaches coming here, the more they hear about dehumanizing language used by the far right about these refugees, every time they're going to think less and less of these refugees. It's not going to have the same impact, and therefore, who cares? Therefore, that must be okay. I think that's the heart of the issue. Oh, damn. I disconnected my headphones. Okay, let's end this video. Let's end it.
That's what we, like you said, that's what we do. Carl's done plenty of reading into Gramsci. Plenty of people, I think Yavin himself has done plenty of reading into Gramsci, because whether, like you say, whether or not you agree with his end goals, his tactics demonstrably work. Mm-hmm. We live in a world where his tactics worked. So, there's plenty to learn from that. But just to really bolster my argument that the people, not just the American people, but people in the West in general, seem to be quite tired of democracy. We've got a cameo from our old boy Thomas Dowling, who I miss
see what this
dearly.
Western man says.
Yes,
if anything has been proven to be true in the last 30 years, is that the Conservative Party are little more than the opportune of amoral people. Yeah, of course. Great Britain News viewer says he thinks an absolute monarchy is a better option than the general election. Holy shit!
Where average Western man makes a guest appearance in the crowd at GB News during a Q&A session, and they're talking about politics, they're talking about the Parliament at the moment, and Thomas, when asked, what do you think should happen, has quite a spicy suggestion. Do you mind just taking it back to the beginning of the video, and we can just hear what he has to say, and the reaction to it as well? Just take that back.
Election jurors asking, what do you want instead?
Here's an idea. Absolute monarchy. Revoke Parliament. Everyone speaks.
And then everyone claps. There you go, that's all I wanted to play of that.
Probably, I'm going to venture out on a guess here. If I heard that, I would assume it was a joke. And I would start laughing and clapping, but such a moronic idea. Come on.
Thank you, Thomas, for showing up there, because it was a beautiful moment. But just absolute monarchy, revoke Parliament. Everybody starts cheering. I love it. People just know that the whole system is corrupt. They know that everything is going wrong. They know that the will of the people has been revealed as a myth, because if you have the will of the people, they'll just tell you, actually, the will of the people is what we want it to be. So people are just thinking, maybe it would be better if there was just one guy in charge who won't screw us over as bad.
I mean, I'm very skeptical about pretty much anyone screwing us over, just political power in general.
I'm
very, very cynical about that sort of thing, but it is interesting and kind of it's a bit exciting to see new ideas, see the mainstream. There's certainly a lot to gain from.
Hey, welcome to the new ideas, same as the old ones.
Particularly what Curtis Yarvin said, even though I don't agree with everything, of course.
No, of course not. And for the love of God, Curtis, please start writing in a more normal fashion. But anyway, that's what I have for that. And I think, a lot of people are just tired of democracy because they just hate all of the stress that it brings into their lives.
If you're
Appreciated that segment from the
Who
podcast.
the fuck are you? I do agree with the last thing, that people are tired of democracy. I don't think it's for the same reasons as they seem to believe. Before we exit out of here, I want to go over this one more time. Point number 1, cult of tradition. Do I even need to justify this? Point number 2, the rejection of modernism. These two goes hand in hand. Cult of action for action's sake. It's not a strong check mark here. We can put it in green, perhaps. Oh, just more red. In green instead. It is a cult of actions for action's sake, what they're doing, but they didn't promote it in this video specifically. A disagreement is treason. I'm gonna say a soft check mark here as well. They absolutely were talking about. I mean, they didn't say the words outright, but they said so much else outright. So I'm. That's why they're getting the soft check mark. If they were more obscure in general, I would give a hard check here, because everything indicated this, but they didn't say it explicitly. Fear of difference. Yeah, of course. Appeal to social frustration. Yeah. Obsession with a plot. Absolutely. The enemy is both strong and weak. I mean, the journalism lying. Yeah, of course. Pacifism is trafficking with the enemy. For Ur-fascism, there is no struggle for life, but rather life is lived for struggle. I'm going to give a soft check here as well. Just because that's the vibe I'm getting from them. We should suffer under a monarch instead of struggling to make life better. We should just live for the struggle there. I'm going to say that's a soft check on this. Contempt for the weak. Elitism is a typical aspect of any reactionary ideology. Yeah, I'm going to give a soft check here. Again, they didn't explicitly say it, but they indicated as much. If I would ask them if these journalists are weak for not saying what they're actually thinking, they would absolutely agree with that. Everybody's educated, become a hero. Yeah, that's what they're doing here. Machismo and weaponry, for sure. Selective populism. Yeah. This is the big one of their video. They were selectively using populism as a tool for fascism. The populism they were using was the frustration people have with the democratic system, the frustration people have with the current crop of politicians, and therefore fascism somehow. Therefore autocracy. Therefore we need a king, a sovereign. Ur-fascism speaks newspeak. Yeah. Yep.